my name is Donna Thompson. I'm a master gardener here in Pierce County, and I'm also a board member of Save Streets. I'm collaborating with Save Streets to give you a few video clips and tips about how to start a garden. In this time of stay in place and stay healthy, there's been a real resurgence in gardening. I love to garden. I know you will too. It's a way to stay healthy and to feed your soul. Most of us think that gardening takes a lot of space. Well, it doesn't. I grow my garden in containers. Other people may use their pots called just grow pots, or you can use a bucket. You drill some holes in it, 1 to 2 to let it drain. Pots that you could get at the garden store, just about anything. You could even grow it in a plastic container that your little tomatoes come in and create a windowsill garden. So gardening comes in many different forms based on what kind of space you have at your home. So the first thing you need to think about, or what space do you have? One, so are you going to be growing it in a container, or do you have a plot of yard that you can actually either do it in the ground, or you can create a raised bed, which is something you can make yourself, or you can buy kits from some of the box stores. The other thing is, what do you like to grow? What do you like to eat? I'd say grow what you like to eat. And you could grow that for yourself, or possibly share your veg or flowers with your community with food banks. So again, just, kind of grow what you like to eat. I think you need to think about where you're going to put your garden. What's the sun conditions? What are those going to be? Because there are some plants that really prefer to grow in sun, like some of your tomatoes and eggplants. Some don't care, which would be like some of your leafy greens, your lettuces, etc. Although there are also vegetables that prefer to be grown in the cooler, say March, April, maybe early part of May of the year. Your peas, some of your lettuces, certainly things like coriander, some of the herbage. But you can grow your own starts, or you can buy those at the store and plant them yourself. I've got a pot here because in my yard I have containers. I don't have a lot of yard space, so I've got a pot I've filled with soil. And keep in mind, it's soil, not dirt. Soil is a living component. There are critters, when you're out in your yard, there are critters that are good for, eating things and leaving things in the soil that are nutritious for your plants, that then, provide nutrition for what you're growing. So I've got my soil here. I've got it in my pot. As I said, I purchased my potting soil, which I purchased from the store. If you're planting in containers, you do not want to go out into your garden or into your yard and take that soil and stick it in here. It's a heavier mix than what you need for your pot containers. So again, purchase potting soil from the store. It's a lighter weight mixture. It's got all the good things in it that you need, the components. Some stuff called vermiculite that lightens things up. Anyway, it's a good mix for your seeds. So I'm just going to dump the rest of this into my container here. The other thing I did is I was putting the soil in here. I wet it in layers just to get some moisture going down there. You'll notice, and we'll talk about this after I plant the seeds, but I'm in here doing things to the soil. You're creating air spaces, and so you'll want to water. Certainly we'll do that at the end, as I said, after we plant the seeds. It'll help bring those spaces down to almost nothing, and then create a good stable medium to grow your starts or your seeds. So I'm going to put the rest of this in here. Not coming out real easy. Oh, here we go. And hopefully I'll have, there we go, yeah. So I don't want it to come right up to the brim. I'd like to have maybe 1 to 2 inches or half an inch below the lip. Just do this. Okay, I am going to actually plant a zucchini start that was given to me by a friend the other day. This is your everyday variety zucchini that is, they're quite prolific. So I'm going to plant that. I think I'm going to plant it in the center because I then am going to use one of these tomato stakes to put around it so it can vine up. But again, when you're doing containers, or just even in your garden or a raised bed, get creative with things you have around the house that you might repurpose. You had some stakes, and you could get some chicken wire and wire things up to get things to climb. Think about growing vertically. It saves space. That's what I'm doing here. So we'll just get this guy out of here. And you might want to save your pots for growing other starts, other seeds that you can then replant into the yard. So get this hole dug here, get him in there, tamp down a little bit. Get this guy in here, and then get going with my seeds. And then as he starts growing and trailing, I will start vining him around. And another thing you might think of is doing pruning. You can prune some of, you have the stalk and a leaf is coming off. Sometimes there's another one in here. You can start trimming those off, and what it will do is force all the nutrients coming into the plant, into the fruit or the flower that you've got, at one of your stems, and you get bigger vegetables. So we'll just leave that guy there. So I've got the zucchini. I'm actually also going to plant another little zucchini. It's an heirloom variety called Table Dainty. It's also vining, so I'll probably plant that around here. And they get to about this big. They're like that. They're quite delicious. As you're going to the store to buy your seeds, for our climate, we have a short season climate. You might want to look at a shorter number of days to grow things because you don't have sun, for 200 days out of the year. Take these seeds and get them into the ground. On most seed packets on the back, there is planting information that tells you the depth to plant the seed, what the spacing needs to be in the days of germination. Pay attention to that because that will aid you in, picking whatever the variety is that you choose to plant. So here was another trick I learned. I just use a little skewer, or this is called a dibble. You usually use these for planting bulbs. You can use them to make those holes for your seeds and put your seeds in there. This is how we start our tomatoes for the Master Gardeners for our garden in Puyallup. That. So typically, the ratio for the seed depth is the length of the seed. You usually go 1/2 to 1 inch, or 1 time the width of your seed or height of your seed. So that's what I've done here. These into the ground. See what they do. The thing I really like about growing my vegetables is being able to say I want a salad one night, come out and pick all of those things fresh. It just tastes better. And there's a sense of accomplishment as well in saying, I grew this. Almost done here. Let's do it here. Okay, and we'll just cover that back up. Tap that down a little bit. Another thing I like to do, if I've got something special I'm planting, I like to get a little stick, a label. I mean, you could use a tongue depressor, a popsicle stick. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But then I like to label what it is I've got going in the ground because I don't always know or remember if I've got multiple things in the pot, what I've planted there. So we'll just take care of that. I've got carrots here, another thing I'm going to plant. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do this with my dibble. Come around here. And get these planted in here. Knowing that I'm going to have to thin these more than likely as they come up, to give space for the really healthy ones to continue growing so you can get a nice straight root. I'll stop there. Now carrots, as are radishes, is another vegetable I'm going to plant today. And all these other things like beets, or if you're doing greens or lettuces, you can do something called succession planting. That's something we can talk about in another video clip at a later time. Let me just go in here now and do my ring for my radishes, which I'm putting on the outside. And I have a variety of radishes. I don't really care which ones are going where. I'll just mix them up. So as I was saying, succession planting is something you can do for some of these vegetables, where once they start coming up, every 2 weeks you can plant more seeds, so that as one set of seeds becomes harvestable, you've got something else coming up behind it, and then you're guaranteed vegetables all summer long. So just get the rest of these in here. I've got a white radish, some French radishes, a watermelon radish, just a variety. We'll see what comes up. I think we'll stop there. Okay, I'm going to cover these up now with some soil. Get that tamped down. Do the same with the carrots. And I'm going to get my labels down here. So we've got our carrots here and our radishes on the side. Okay, I got that tamped down pretty well. So now the next thing to do is to water these in. So again, as I mentioned earlier, watering will, one, give them a good start, hit that seed coat and let it know it's time to start doing things, but also to fill in those air spaces. And especially for the zucchini, which has a root system on it, it will help those roots get the soil around the roots and give it a good stable base. Got my watering can here. Give it a really good soak. Now the other thing I should make you aware of, if you're planting in containers, in pots, the soil will dry out much quicker than it will if it's in the ground. So you're going to want to monitor the soil pretty closely. You'll probably have to water every other day, I'm guessing, depending on if it's raining. We've had a rain or not. But what I do is I just do the finger method, go down to the first knuckle, sticking my finger in the soil. If it's dry, then you're going to want to water. So that's it for today. We'll just see how these guys do, and I'll have another video, hopefully as the seeds come up and you can take a look at what they're looking like. We'll have more videos in the future. Thanks. See you soon.